Welcome to 50 Shades of Shilamida. I am super excited for this episode today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you that are new to my world, my name is Shilamida. I am a spiritual mentor, best-selling author, and a podcast hostess. I am very excited to have a beautiful guest on with me today. She is a mastermind sister of mine. She considers herself to be an oracle, a carrier of evolutionary codes, a master maker, a spiritual mentor providing inspiration, initiation, activation towards a greater level of alignment with your divine presence, your multidimensionality, a place where grace, bliss, and abundance are the most natural form. She supports those who are here to be pillars of light in the world, those who were born with an energetic constitution of high intuition, sensitivity, empathy, and psychic abilities, and feels that they are great leaders of the future. I am super excited to introduce to you Homaya. For those of you that are listening, I hope that you go search her online because she is one of the most beautiful beings I have ever seen. She is so ethereal and gives me so much hope for my future years with the silver compliments in her hair. So welcome to the show, Homaya. Thank you for being here with me today.
Wow, Sharmila, thank you so much. Even just being in a receptive hearing this reflection, which I know who I am, but hearing it through your voice, reflecting back to me, such a beautiful experience in like 2 minutes. Almost zero thing happened, and it's already so alive. Thank you so much.
I just love who you are. I cannot wait to break down who Homaya is, because I'm sure that a lot of my audience listening today is like, wait a second, what's an oracle? What's an evolutionary code? What's a master maker, right? It's all of these things, all of these new vocabularies for this new world. I mean, it's not new for me in my world, but I remember many years ago when I was first getting into spiritual learning and spiritual mentorship, and I thought that I was weird and that something was wrong with me, and that I just like had all these thoughts and these things that were so different than everybody else. And here, like, you are this beautiful representation of even more than what I know. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and introduce you to the world.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know if this is something to really highlight or not. From time to time, unfortunately, I still feel weird.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It still feels a little bit weird because in this society that we are living, where we are easily engaged with what we can see and touch and sense, so our heavy senses, to tune into things which are etheric, celestial, and really for me, not having them different than any material experience can be perceived still very weird. And of course, it was very weird when I started. But I've learned to live with it. And I actually know that, for some people, it would just keep on being weird as long as I am completely aligned with it. And I feel that I am liberating so many people who speaks about it, like privately or just with themselves, or just the memory of what happened when they were 5 years old or 15 years old. There's no way to live on the planet without having a spiritual experience. It's like there's either tiny or large, it will happen.
I totally agree. And I love that we have the opportunity to do things like this, to have podcasts, to have shows, to have different avenues for people who are quote unquote weird like us can find us, and to know and understand that there's nothing wrong with you, that we all came here to be very different beings. We all connect in a very different way, and we all have these openings of knowledge. And like you said, the spiritual experience, whether it's very small or it's very big, everybody's having some kind of spiritual experience. So, you
Yeah.
know, in my work, I like to help people awaken. I like to shake up the ethers and really disrupt the patterns to help people understand, like, we're not just here to work 9 to 5 for somebody else, to be miserable, to go drink at the bar on Friday night, and to vacation once a year, right? We're here to live these
Yeah.
massively extraordinary lives. And so why don't we start with Oracle? What is an Oracle?
Maybe I should say a new age oracle or contemporary oracle.
I like that.
Or yeah, because I believe that what a shaman or an oracle or a seer was 20 years ago, 100 years ago, when this vocabulary started, a priestess and so on, when this vocabulary was used, is different from what it is now. So I name myself as an oracle because of the evolutionary codes. Because one of the things that, if not the major thing that I am dealing with, is being in the front line between the common world, the material plan world, and that which is unseen, that which is beyond. And I feel that during my entire life, from childhood, I was there, you know, on this front line, on this gate, looking to this world and to this world. So an oracle is the one who's able to see beyond the sin and trace some future possibilities. Each of us can easily look at what happened behind us, right? In past life, we're telling us more confidence, telling ourselves more confident stories. That was in the past, so I know that and that and that. Although what your mind remember is, you know, like information that it chooses to keep inside. It's not really what happened. So it's easy to say, oh, I know what happened in the past. And it's more complicated, of course, because there's uncountable possibilities of what will happen in the future. The idea in foreseeing, the idea in tuning into what does not exist is having, like, you know, a way to look, like you have like a hole of a needle. And, you know, when you are looking, where you were a child and looking at a room from, you know, from the keyhole, right? When we were a child, we were having really a keyhole that you could look through.
Yep.
And although it is a tiny, tiny, tiny little room, little hole, you could see the room.
True.
This is an oracle. It's one that can look through a tiny little hole in this 3D world into a large perspective of, to manifest, we can say, possibilities. And of course, as this is, I would say, spiritual initiation, or whether you receive this initiation from a master or you received it from your soul contract by being birthed on this planet, it's all happening for the highest good of all and in alignment. So it's not me trying to figure out what is happening to this person and what is possible there. It is more being able to sense a certain motion that already exists for a person or for a group of people or for the culture or for the planet, and say, okay, you know, I see this notion, I see this motion, and this is going into that and that possibilities. Of course, everything can happen, but hey, look at that and look at that. And I may add, most of the common people will say, oh, so this is what is about to happen. But it's not, hey, look at that and that because this is what is about to happen. But rather, look at that option and look at that option, because in the presence of those options, you might realign yourself. Excuse me, you might realign yourself. You might choose differently.
I love
You
that.
might consider different things. Maybe you open your heart more. Maybe you move yourself into action.
How did this come about for you in your Did you grow up in a family that was spiritual? Was this just a feeling that you had that led you to this way? How does one know that this is the path that they're supposed to go on?
You mentioned today, just a few minutes ago, that you love to be the one who's shaking the people, waking up. The life is way more than what your eyes can see. I was a very sensitive child all of my life, until adolescence, until afterwards. I was a hypersensitive. It showed up a lot in unbalanced emotional body. So I was like, from almost, like I was like that, super sensitive. And I was coming from a family that were very conservative, we can even say. Work, 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 do, this thing. And I was a good girl. So I've done everything that, my parents guided me to do. And when I graduated, so I was learning architecture in a university, and I was starting to work as an architect, and I started having my own clients as an architect, which is, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. At that time, it was not that easy to gain clients. So that was a point in my life where I felt I should arrive there. That would be a point where I should and I felt like, this is a joke. I cannot be. I've done all of that just to what? Go, have dates and drink with friends, and where am I going with work, pay taxes? How far is this good girl going to take me? It didn't seem that it's going to achieve something more. And I do remember the thought, which was a thought, but important, where I was just like, no, it cannot be. It cannot be that all of this machine that I've received is for that. It cannot be that this genius world, outstanding world, is just for that flat experience. It cannot be that all those trees, all those leaves, all those stars, all of this music, all of that for a flat experience. I said, no, it's like, no way, it cannot be. And I started searching. And since I had no experience before of anything spiritual, a part of being very sensitive and very psychic, but no one said that to me, that I'm psychic.
Right.
So I started searching, and I started searching, what would it be? What am I going to do? How? And I had no answers for 4 years. And one day I just got fed up, and without knowing that the universe really listened, and there's something out there that really reflects back, I just literally said very strongly within me, listen, whomever you are. Oh. Yeah, listen, universe, listen, whomever you are, listen, I'm fed up. I'm searching for 4 years. I've tried so many things, believe me. Shilamida, you wouldn't believe what I tried. I was an architect. So I was thinking, maybe I'm not enjoying private housing. Maybe I should do shops. Then I've done shops. Then I said, maybe shops, it's not the thing that bring me life. Maybe I should do buildings. This is how flat I was. Then I said, maybe it's not that. Maybe I should go to graphic design, because I felt I need something lighter. It didn't work. Then I said, I'm going to be a VJ. You can imagine, I'm going to be a VJ. I was like, that was where I was. I'm going to be a VJ. Going to start doing graphics next to music in clubs. And I tried so many things. It was like, nah. And then I said, okay, I do not know what is the plan. I don't know why you take me there, why it's all happening. But I've searched all over the place, and I cannot find anything that really makes sense. So from now on, it's an Italian strike. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to stop completely, and I'm getting serious about it. I'm going to stop completely, and you're going to show me.
Wow.
Yeah, I was mega bold, which means that I quit my architecture. I was working as an architect for someone. I quit. I gave him away my architecture private client. I had 3 houses that I was working.
Wow.
My boyfriend, my clothes, many of my clothes, letters from childhood. Like, I just cleared my space. I just cleared everything. And Italian strike. I said, until you're not going to show me what is the thing I am doing, I'm not moving, I'm not doing anything.
And
then, thanks God, Grace came to visit.
okay.
And this is, this is one of the things that I like to remember myself as well, and to remind people are so afraid of the void.
Yes.
The greater the void, the greater the manifestation.
Yes. Yes.
As big as the void.
So around how old were you when Grace came?
Grace came, I was 30,
yeah.
31.
30, yeah. That's
30,
probably
31.
when the big shift happened for me too. So I think it's important for people listening to understand that for some, they know as a child, they know that something's different, and they know that they're gifted. They know. I did not know this. I mean, I knew I was different. I knew something, but I just thought that it was because my family were immigrants and we didn't have what other people had. And we didn't live like the quote unquote normal life where everybody had dinner together at the end of the day. And so when I was in my 20s and I went to college and I started meeting all these other people, and like I still was very different. And at that point, I turned to drugs and alcohol and all the, other things to see if there was a place for me there. Kind of like you, I was searching, but I didn't know where to search. And instead of stripping myself of everything, I went full into everything to see.
But Shilamida, this is also a path, although we're going to touch a topic that I'm not sure all the audience going to like hearing that, but we're okay with that, right?
Yeah.
So there's several things to say. I believe that people are approaching drugs and alcohol because they seek connection.
Truth.
I don't feel that they are seeking disconnection. And I do feel that they are seeking connection with divinity. Because if you look at the nature of alcohol, of drinking, that was actually created in monasteries. So the origin of alcohol is not something that was, like for people to get drunk and, no, saints, people in monasteries, people in orders were creating this type of medicine. They were not abusing it,
right?
But they were the alchemists. They were the, how would I say, like the pharmaceutical vision of, I can enhance my connection to spirit if I'm going to put spirit in a bottle. And this is why also alcohol, when you buy it, you call it spirit, right?
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting.
So people in monasteries, saints, priests were actually brewing and creating this liquid that's supposed to enhance and open your vision in order to connect. And most of the drugs that people are using are actually coming from a sacred plant. So, in my life journey, after my awakening and so on, I had to fill up the gap, if we can say. And I traveled around the world like I had, I had a battery energized And I was like all over the world, meeting shamans, healers, prophets, like great people that holds a lot of energy and a lot of wisdom. And I was sitting with them, living in their houses, being with them to learn and to open up. Yeah. And if you travel the world, you see, of course, that the coca leaves are sacred, the tobacco leaves are sacred. Like there are so many. If you read the holy scripts, if you read the Bibles and you read other holy scripts from it doesn't matter, from the Middle East, from the area of the Far East, you see that there is a description of uses of different leaves, of different, they call it perfumes, different things of that type that people were using, mushrooms, like all of that. People were using that in order to elevate a little bit more than the common consciousness, in order to open their antennas and to connect. So although it is not a common conversation, I don't know who's going to hunt me after this conversation. Although
I
it's not
feel like this is going to help a lot of people, this conversation, because back then I thought I was doing it for escape, but now that I just had an aha moment where I was seeking connection. 100% I was seeking connection because I couldn't find my place. My parents were not religious. We were Jewish by birth, and they were, I call them breakaway Jews, right? Because my grandparents lived through the Holocaust. So by the time my parents came to the United States, they wanted nothing to do with the religious aspect.
Oof, I have a full body shivery.
And I had a lot of friends who went to church, who were Catholic, who were Christian. So I started going to church with them because I was looking for something, right? I wanted something, some kind of connection. I didn't know that I could talk to God. I didn't know I could talk to spirit. I thought I had to be in some kind of religion in order to do that. So, I mean, I think this is such a beautiful conversation, because now I do see people using mushrooms as plant medicine, people using ketamine as a medicine, right? Like the drugs, quote unquote, that I used to use, what I thought I was doing as an escape. Now, if you're doing it with the right person in the right situation in the right facility, so maybe there's people who are going to be listening to this right now who might be overindulging in these things, thinking that they're looking for an escape, but really they're looking for a connection. And I love that.
They're definitely, I do believe that they are looking for a connection. I truly believe in that. I feel that probably either there is an insight, like there's something intuitive that they connect and they feel and they recognize that here they can find an answer, or there are an awakened memory from past life experience where they were not abusing, but rather using. And this is a whole different thing, like it's
Right.
a whole different game. If you are using and there's intention and there's a prayer and there's, like there's a space holding and there's a ceremony, there's so many things. So indeed, you can elevate through that, but not if you are abusing it. And the thing is that most of the people who are abusing it are being perceived by society as a very weak people.
Right.
But how can you be a weak person if you take a certain drug and it kills you from the inside? You take alcohol and it kills you from the inside, and then you do it again. You need to be so powerful in order to do that. So the people say to themselves, oh, I am weak because entire society thinks that I'm weak. But I'm actually so powerful, I'm just knocking my head on the wrong door, not so on the wrong door, on the door, but in the wrong way. Wow. And if they will just, like take the power that they have and use it differently, use it through awakening the heart, use it through believing in themselves. I believe that they are so powerful.
I just had full body chills on that because, in the last 6, 7 months, I've been experimenting with not drinking and not smoking pot and not doing some of the vices that I used to do. And now I'm dabbling back in, but it's a completely different experience, and I'm using it to enhance, right? I was smoking pot for a long time for anxiety purposes, right? Because that's the way that I made it through COVID. But then I stopped doing it completely. And then I brought it back one day and I created the funniest video of all time. And I was like, I can't let it go completely. And I have to tell you that I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned 8 businesses in my life. And most of those businesses were created while I was under the influence.
Yeah.
So the way that we're having this conversation right now is really mind-blowing me, because it's like, as a society, we've been trained to think that those things are wrong, right? That they're bad for you, and so you go into it as like, even a little kid, like I see my older teenagers, how like they want to have a drink, but they feel like they have to sneak it and they're not allowed to. And it's the way that we're training them. But like, the way that you're explaining it is so empowering. It's like if we were giving people a different choice with it, wow, what a difference that would make for our whole society.
I remember, well, just, I am not drinking and I'm not smoking because I'd like my connection to source to be pure.
Mhm.
I like it. I really love it. And I know that it means that I need to pump a little bit more my spiritual muscles in order to get to the places that I want to get. I'm coming from a shamanic lineage. Shamanic lineage is very much known by using different types of, like plant medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But specific my shamanic lineage we're not using anything. We are just playing with consciousness, pure consciousness. You need to do a lot of spiritual muscles for that. So I like my channels to be very, very clean, very, very pure, and I'm really okay with it. But for example, one of my friends one time, she said, I want to stop smoking. What would you suggest me to do? And I said, just do a ceremony from every cigarette you take and let the ceremony be bigger than the smoking.
Ah.
And she started doing ceremonies. She said, what would you do? I said, I don't know. If I would put a prayer when you roll, put intention when you roll, smoke to the different, directions, smoke not by doing anything else. And the energy going to be really, really elevated. And you're going to, and I told her, don't take, like nicotine, work with the spirit. Really, the spirit of the tobacco is a very, very, very powerful spirit.
Wow.
It's a spirit of purification. There is almost no sacred ceremony that wouldn't start with a blow of a tobacco.
What a small but powerful shift to like look at things as ceremonies and spiritual and connection, instead of the way that we've been brought to think that everything is so bad and weak and disconnected. And wow, it's just like this small little shift can be so life-changing. And I cannot wait to hear the comments that are going to come off of this show.
Yeah.
So unexpected, this conversation that we're having. I love it.
I agree, it's unexpected, but we also need to recall, both of us, you and me, we said just before the recording started, we said we're open for the spirit to show up what wants to be spoken.
Yep.
And we agree to be of service. And as we agree to be of service, and at least I have done my own little prayer before starting, so I am in peace. I'm sure that although people will think that it is weird, going back to where we started, although people will think that this is weird, although some people might not like that, I am empowered by the divine. at this current moment, and you are empowered by the divine. And once you lose this connection, honestly, you're lost.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. In the non-drinking, non-smoking phase that I've been in, there has been a very clear channel for me. And I'm in a void right now. I'm operating in a very big void in between lives and starting a new life, being a married woman, and just trying to see, where do I belong, where do I go next, and I love it. This is the first time in my life that I'm actually enjoying life, because I have been conditioned to suffer, and my ancestral lines have always suffered, so I've just carried that through. And so people think that I'm so positive, and I branded myself as the goddess of gratitude, but if you really know me, I actually have to work hard to be happy, to be peaceful, to be calm. My initial reaction to things is the negative or the doomsday or it takes a lot for me to see things in a positive perspective. So I love having these conversations, because people think that there's something wrong with them, right? Well, like, look at how positive Shilamida is. It's not possible to be like that all the time. But when the cameras go off, and I'm in everyday life, I'm a normal person just like everybody else. And I have to work towards this. And having these conversations helps me to understand that it's normal. Everything's normal. Being different is normal. Thinking different is normal. Being negative is normal. We've been conditioned to be this way. And so now we get to choose to do things a little different. And I really am interested in, you are a carrier of evolutionary code. And in the online world, we hear a lot about codes. And recently I've realized that I too carry voice codes. But I'm curious to know what your interpretation of an evolutionary code is and how we would explain that to the world.
Okay, so should we say a few words about what codes are, or okay, generally about codes? Big topic.
Yes, big
Yeah,
word.
big one. We tend to perceive ourselves as we are living in a very nonchalant, spontaneous, and there are some parts of us that are programmed in order for us to function in life. So we are programmed physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We're programmed in some level, and in some level we're not, right? So our programs showed up in our emotional behavior, in emotional patterns, in behavioral patterns, in mental patterns. All of those are codes. It's like a script. You were probably reading the Bible, whether the Old Testimonies or the New Testimony or both in your life. So especially for the Old Testimonies, all codes.
Right.
It's all codes. You're reading the Bible. You're not, well, of course there is a story, but you're actually, while you're reading the story, there is a projection of codes that supports you to shift. Why the holy scripts are so powerful? Because they are like yantras, they are like projections of holy scripts, of scripts that work with your perception of yourself and life, and play with it. Why would as my architecture experience, I can tell you, why would the temples and the monasteries and the orders were so well designed on places of power and so on? Because this is how they were influencing the biological human experience. So we're full of codes. Some of the codes are unaware, they are repetition. Some of the codes are windows that opened up and there's new code coming in, or this is what I feel that I have done most of my life as a healer. I needed to understand what is the operational system, what is the storytelling, the narrative that the mind obey, and therefore influence the experience that the person is seeing. and then go into that place and rewrite the code or erase the code or liberate the code. There's something, a story that a person is saying to himself. You and I, we were exchanging stories here. The people who are listening to us now, they have stories that they tell to themselves. Oh, a man is something like that. A woman is something like that. Being born to that family is saying that and that. Those are all codes. And as you want to shift and change, you want to look at the codes that you have inside and say, like a computer, this code creates a certain reality that I am not interested in anymore. I'm not interested projecting a reality that doesn't match my heart desires. Why should I keep on projecting those codes? I'm going to shift the codes. I'm going to shift this belief system. I'm going to shift this irrational thought. So this is codes.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, of course, I can even just.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can just keep on talking about that. Because, so what is evolutionary codes? I was a healer for so many years. And I went through, so, I had my first awakening, which happened after I stopped everything. And then I had another quite dramatic change in my life that happened 6-7 years ago, where I've realized that I need to shift my connection with the lineage that I was part of. It was a shocking experience. I cannot even speak about it without just mentioning it for my own health and sake, like it was a challenging experience.
Fair enough, yes.
Thank you. But I felt that I am pushed to do it, that there's something that needs that to end. My inclination to the spiritual heritage that I received was very big. So I was carrying a lot of lineage knowledge, ancient shamanic techniques and technologies that I was applying. And once I spoke through my presence that I feel that my calling is different, and I accept to graduate and to complete. And this is so hard because it's like it's something that you're connected to. I'm speaking with myself. Thank you, everyone who's listening. There's something that you are connected to. It's like a lover that you are connected to. And this is so beautiful. And then you come to a realization that needs to end. This relationship needs to end. And what happened to me, again, the bigger the void, the stronger the manifestation, is that I started channeling things that were so vast and big that I myself was overwhelmed for that. So before, when I was channeling, it was like, okay, I can channel your grandmother or your grandfather, and I can channel this ascendance master, and I can channel Jesus, and I could channel, I could channel messages from angels. I could. To the extent that I can tell you when there is an archangel, when there is a spirit guide, when there is, like a human being that was ascend, like I could really literally know, I know the difference. And then I started channeling something which is not anymore a linear message. So it's not like I have an idea and those ideas going to unravel themselves. I like the spirit guide, and it's going to be delivered to you. A linear explanation that will have a ripple effect within you. I started channeling complex, I'm holding my head as I express that. I started channeling complex modalities and methodologies. Complex. So I channeled something that I named soul alchemy. It's a description of 12 spectrums of creation, which we experience them according to the level of the consciousness that we have. Okay. So, for example, we can experience it in low vibration. We can experience guilt, shame, like envy, blame, which is low frequency. But as everything is created with light and as light, the low frequency is actually good. Exactly like we were speaking about, like drugs and alcohol a few minutes ago. If you're able to be anchored in light. So the 12 spectrums is why did divinity give that to us? Why divinity offered to this planet shame or guilt?
Mhm.
It is a spectrum that if you walk on this spectrum, you will find actually that in another quantity of light and another vortex of how it plays within you, it's actually supposed to do something super powerful, super meaningful. It should bring your creator out to the world. It should bring your light stronger and so on. It actually supports you to move from victim to a creator consciousness.
Right.
So that was like a massive download. That was the first one. And then I wrote The Awakened Healer. So I'm saying I wrote it, it's still not published. And Shalamina, also you and I, we are like in a writing
Oh, I can't wait.
club together,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all in draft. It's alive within me, but in draft, in everything is already written, but not in a communicative way. Maybe, who knows? Next year it's already going to be a book. Hopefully, wishfully. So so I also wrote The Awakened Healer, which is most of the healers are functioning from a place of a wound.
Right.
I am wounded. I need to discover how to transform. How am I going to be transformed? Okay, now I'm going to keep on looking for other people's problem and being engaged with other people's problem and actually being dependent in other people's problems, which I see a whole different vision to what healing and the healing world and the evolution of healing. So this is The Awakened Healer. It's really big. It's like, again, it's like a diamond, have 8 facets, and they are all communicating with each other. It's magnificent. And my biggest, which I'm the most proud of, I can say, although it is a channeling content, it's what I named the 4th heaven. So I need you all to go back with me to the point where I said, well, Grace came to visit.
Yes.
Grace came to visit while I was sleeping, and it took me to another experience where I went through all the heavens.
Wow.
Yeah. So 20 years forward, we moved 20 years after this awakening. And I started looking, when I started seeing my clients, I started seeing that the chakra system, as I've learned it to be and as I used to see it, is not being perceived anymore as it is. And I started really puzzling about that. And I started asking my spirit guides and God and Grace questions about it. Like, what is it? And then I've discovered that there is something which I came to name as a universal chakra. So the chakra system is about how we communicate and how we function in the 3D world, right? First chakra, survival, how we eat, how we move, the body. Second chakra, relationship, sex, money, abundance, procreative, creative, etc. Solar, our clarity, our digestive, and so on. Heart, our heart chakra, how we open, how we are connected. Expression, I believe most of the people who are listening to you regularly know that, right?
Probably.
But then when you think about it with all respect, it's mechanical. It's linear, mechanical, functional. And you should believe that all of the divine energy is coming through the crown. And then the way that it distributes. But then when I started seeing and exploring that, I didn't know I was in 9 months of trance. Other people could say trust, but it was like 9 months of trance. I was just in it. And I honestly at that thought, I thought that I was channeling, but I really heard a thing in my ears. It was like I was moved into an experience where I can perceive and sense. And I started describing the universal chakras, and the universal chakras are multidimensional, and they are tapping to where do we have access to a potential fountain, we should say. So the normal chakra system cannot tell you what is your talent, but it should be somewhere in your auric field, right? How do you translate light codes if we're speaking about codes? How do you relate to your ancestor and you have access and protection from your ancestral lineage? How do you move on earth in a way that supports your growth? How do you reset your system again and again? All of those things are in our universal chakras. And that was mind-blowing also to me. And honest to goodness, it's still mind-blowing.
So when you talk about the fourth heaven, is it different layers of heaven? Is it different dimensions? Like, I think a lot of people that are listening might know about 3D, but for some people, they don't understand that there's different dimensions of life. So do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Ooh, it's big. Well, me and you for sure.
Several hours for this.
I'm saying me and you for sure we are enjoying the conversation.
Yes.
And if the people who are listening enjoy the conversation, I would really like to know. Yeah, so heavens are layers where different aspects of our beings, our being and other beings are held. So heavens are actually related to accumulation of consciousness. And of course, the elements that create our heaven, the same that we agree that we have a body and then we have an emotional body, a mental body, and so on. So also this universe is heaven on earth, this planet, heaven on earth, and then there is the auric field of planet Earth. And the auric field of planet Earth are the heavens. We don't call it body, the energetic body of the planet. We call it the heavens. And the fourth heaven of planet Earth, of planet Earth, is, of course, you can say that this is the heart, but it is also where it is described are the holy temple of our creation. So a soul is being birthed at the higher heavens and incarnated through the fourth heaven, the holy temple, where we sign our contract, where we decide upon this lifetime. And yes, this is like, it's the holy temple, although it's not a place, rather a state. I can just keep on speaking about it so much.
I love it. So when my introduction to spirituality was Kabbalah, so I was very disconnected. I had no religious background. I was looking for something, and I wasn't the nicest person then. My father had cancer. I didn't know how to deal with that. My mother then had cancer. So when I found Kabbalah gave me a basis to become a good person, right? The person that I am now, I feel like is because of that basis. And so the way that Kabbalah explains it is that we come from the light. right? We come from, and if we were to translate into your terms, it would be, we come from the heavens, right? And we come here basically to learn the duality, right? You can't have happy without sad. You can't have anger without joy. Like you just can't know the difference. So when we're in the heavens, when we're in the light, it's almost like we're bored. It's like too good, right? Like everything is too good. So then we come here earthbound so that we get punched around a little bit and we cry. We know how good it really was there, right? And then we're trying to find this connection back. And then the contract is so interesting to me, right? Because I'm sure that people listening, there's a lot of people that have no idea that we actually choose the mother and the father that we came here to, right? People will be like, well, I didn't choose them. And I think when I first learned that, I'm like, there's no way I would have chosen them, right? But now I fully understand that it was this mother and this father that has gotten me to where I am now. And in a lot of past life work, I've made so many connections to the connection of me and my father and the lives that we lived before and how we got to this life now. And it's so fascinating when you really start to like peel away the layers. And even with my husband now, when I first met him, it was days after I did a past life regression. And in that regression, I was like 17, 18 years old. I was blonde. It was like Little House on the Prairie times. And my great grandmother was in the house. She comes to me a lot in these visions. And it was my wedding day. And my bride walking down the aisle towards me was shot in front of me. And so when I met Ben, I was like, oh my God, were you her? Was that us? Was this? And now all these years that we've been together and all the spiritual work that I've done, I know that that was him or her in that life. And, you know, my father was actually the shooter. He shot her. So this life was his correction for that life. And it's so mind-boggling. And I know some people are going to be like, okay, this is where I'm going to turn this off because this is on like a whole nother level of weird and crazy. But it's so powerful when you can peel back this layers and really open yourself up to these different dimensions of life that we've lived before and the codes that we've carried with us to come into this life to really create heaven on earth, which is where I feel like I am now. I feel like I've reached a level of heaven on earth. What a beautiful place to be, right?
Beautiful, beautiful.
And to be able to attract other humans that are like me, to have these kinds of conversations, to not think like, oh my God, I'm crazy. Like I remember in college, like I used to smoke pot with other people and then be like, oh, well, what if the Bible was written by a whole bunch of people that were on acid? And they just looked at me and they're like, you're nuts. And I'm like, no, but what if we've lived this life before? And they're like, okay, we're not inviting her out this time, you know? But there was truths in everything that I was saying.
This is I really like us to highlight the word truth, because for most of the people, truth is something mental, is something which can be proven. And I feel that, okay, that is legit. You can prove some things to be the truth. But at the same time, I do put a question mark because, you know, the source almost of everything on this world that is being influenced dramatically from the sun is a source we cannot even examine. So what are the proof that you're going to give me? Like, the proof is that scientifically we already know that we are looking at things that actually exist upside down, and I am brainwashed to believe that the floor is here. But the proof of the truth is that the floor is actually here, and I'm looking at everything physically, biologically upside down. And I take truth to be, truth is an experimental experience, an experimental movement that you are feeling, that you're becoming alive in it. Truth is, if I say something to you and that is already alive within you, you will resonate and you will say, yes, this is my truth. This is a truth for me. I also believe that divinity have patience, and the soul of each and every person on this planet, thanks God, have patience. And some of the people might listen to this conversation or to the things that you were sharing or I was sharing and saying that could be too much. It could be, and it could be that that would be seeds of truth and seeds of light within them, which one day, one thing and another thing and another thing, if spirit guides made them sit and listen, or better we say it like that, if spirit guide made you sit and listen, and you're still listening, there's something for you. And the humbleness of this life is to be able to be receptive. Whatever we are seeking for, whether it would be a partner or an income or a certain level of knowledge or whatever we're seeking for, is already here. It's our level of receptivity. So,
and our truth is different for everybody, right? Just because society doesn't think that it's true doesn't mean that it's not truth. And that is, I hope, what people really get out of this conversation, is that whether you think we're weird or not, whether you think that this is the best conversation you've ever heard, we all have our own truths. We all have our own paths. We all have our own, guides. And this is why I love human design so much, because human design has allowed me to sit with my truth and become comfortable with who I am, where at one point society led me to believe that something was wrong with me because I like to shine and I like to be too much, and I like, and then I learned about my design and I'm like, no, this is you're designed exactly the way that you are. Like, this is perfect. Like, I am perfect the way that I am. And it's okay if you're too much for this person, but you're not going to be too much for that person. And it's just such a beautiful thing to just be, right? To just be me, to be you, to allow for ourselves to sit with the uncomfortable of, not everybody is going to understand this conversation. Not everybody's going to like this conversation, but we could sit here for hours and enjoy this conversation, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I actually believe that those who are listening are in this conversation. They are speaking with us now. This conversation is for us and for them, definitely. I do believe we are all, going back into this life experience. We are all living in a channeled universe. Even if everything, not even if, whatever is written in the Bible, one day someone wrote it. Whatever, right? So there is a channeled experience. The house that you're living was channeled by an architect, and the house that you're driving in is channeled by the car, excuse me, that you're driving is channeled by someone who designed those cars. And whatever you dream, it's all a channeled experience. We are all living in a channeled, mutual channeled experience. So, you choose how much you want to tell yourself the truth about that, and how much you're ready to explore that and be an active part of it.
Yeah. Homaya, you mentioned that when you work with clients, what does it look like to work with you? If someone listening here is like, I need to be in this woman's presence, how can people reach out to you? What does a session look like with you? Tell us.
Well, so the best way to reach out, Homaya is Homaya, and there's no many people like that. Like, this is so blessed I am. So it would be very easy to find me on Instagram. It's just by my name, Homaya, and this is it. Um, the way that I work is really shifting with the time as I am evolving, and my ability to work with people is changing. And, I don't need the same that I needed before, and so on. So the format is different from time to time, but the idea is that I am there to listen to the depth, the immortality nature that a person is carrying. I am there to listen to those very fundamental essence codes that this person is carrying, see wider and far for him or her or they, to see, what is this soul contract? What is this energetic constitution? Why things are working? Why things are not working? What can be shifted? And then we are shifting it. Some of the things will happen in a chemical way because, just already, I'm doing it for 20 years. It's like, I don't need to do so much. Some of the things are happening alchemically. Some of the things will also pass through an emotional body realization or a mental body realization. So also through conversations. Practically, it would look like conversation. Energetically, it's a whole complex. And there's a lot of revelations and a lot of freedom. This is my, if I would look at the end of the day, what I give the people that are working with me, or I don't know if I give, what the people who are working with me are giving themselves, is the freedom. And the freedom to be who they are. And this is why I also say I'm a master maker, because I have this ability really to sharpen, to create a diamond out of people. Like I really make them solid and grounded in their truth, in their beauty, in their faith, in what they believe in. I take the gold out. I have this, I don't know how, I honestly, I don't know how I do it, but this is definitely in common of most of the people who work with me. Either they took classes with me or work one-on-one or in program and so on. I just bring it out. It's like they start to have a whole different life experience because they are more present. They are even, I would even say, demanding of themselves and life to be golden. And then the reflection starts to come.
I love that.
I also love that so much.
You nailed it on the head when you said freedom, because that is my core value, is freedom. And the ultimate freedom was just falling in love with myself, right? As I am, with all of my imperfections, with all of my weirdness, and becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that has created the ultimate freedom. There was a time where I thought it was, oh, well, if I had this much money, I would be free. If I had this house, I would be free. If I had this thing, I would be free. But none of that creates freedom. That just creates stuff. Freedom is when you are comfortable with who you are and who you came here to be. And I love that you help people tap into that. That's magic right there. No, this was so good. We didn't even touch on like all the other things. We're going to have to do this again.
With pleasure.
My guest again. Okay. For those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in to 50 Shades of Shilamida. If you love this show, please rate us on your favorite podcast station. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment for us. Come find us on social media. You can find me by spelling my first name, Shilamida. I was also blessed like Homaya. We are the one name wonders. Shilamida. You can check out my website, shilamida.com. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again soon. Bye.